Hi guys, PJ here, and today I am working on a 2019 Aygo. I'm going to be showing you how to fit a typical dash cam into the vehicle using a wiring kit so that it goes on and off with the ignition system of the car. All wiring will be hidden, so you'll only literally see like an inch of it coming down from your headlining also. And this will be wired direct to the fuse box, so basically there's nothing at all on show. It's also fully reversible, so if you sell the car or it's a lease car, you'll be able to put it back to normal very quickly because there's no cutting of wires involved or anything like that. It's a nice plug and play kit. So I recommend whatever brand of dash cam you're getting, get yourself a fitting kit like this. Very handy. Let's have a look what's inside it and we'll go from there. So here's what we have in the kit, plus one extra bit. Okay, I'll explain that in a sec. We have a power cable, which terminates in a red cable there with a male bayonet fit plug on it, which funnily enough connects to your fuse adapter, which I'll show you in a second. And we have an earth terminal. So we put this behind a chassis bolt of some description. On these cars, there's one down the passenger footwell. I'll show you where to put that. As long as it earths, so in other words, it can't touch paint, it's got to touch the actual metal of the vehicle, so to earth out. Okay. On the other end of this cable, for this particular camera, is a mini USB, and this plugs directly into your camera or your camera mount to power it. Obviously check your own brand of camera. For example, Blackview don't use a mini USB, they use a little round one, so make sure you consult wherever you're purchasing your camera from for the correct fitting kit. Coming across here we have what's called a ferrite filter. Now what these do is basically wrap around the power cable, and we put them up near the camera itself, near the end, and they try and help with DAB interference. So you've got a DAB radio in your car, put this on. It might help with the interference. I do say might, some brands seem more prone to it than others, and I'll show you how to fit that on the cable shortly. Next up we come to the fuse spurs. Now what these are is like little piggyback sockets for your fuse box to save you cutting any wires or anything. So in other words, you'll pull a fuse out of your fuse box once we've identified which one is ignition switched and not a critical system, and you plug this thing in where the fuse came from. Normally you have a 2 or 3 amp fuse to run the camera itself on the outer one here, and then the fuse you pulled out of the fuse box sits on the inner one here to run the original car's circuit. Now you notice there's a selection of sizes. These larger ones, because these kits are generic, they're not designed for the Aygo, they're designed for any sort of vehicle. These are normally for like older vehicles, commercial, some Mercedes, don't need those, get rid of that. Aygos, from all the ones I've done over all the years, are either micro blade, which is this size, or mini blade. Now you'll notice the gap in between the blades is different. Much smaller fuses in these than these, physically that is. So this kit, for example, only comes with the big one that I've just put to one side and mini blade. So also got a micro blade there just to show you the difference. You can get these individually from places like eBay, Amazon, most local car shops. They're normally £1 to £2 and they are called fuse spurs. So very handy to have. Don't recommend you do the installation without them. In the old days we used to chop the wires at the back of the fuse box and solder onto them. This stops all that, so you can revert it back should you have a lease car. Right, let me show you how to fit your ferrite filter. It's on hinges at the back there, look, there we go, and 2 little clamps at the front. So you pop it open and then quite literally wrap the cable around it and out the other side and then snap shut, like so. Next up, little tip, this is going to be suspended, this cable, above your window screen. Basically your headlining is going to hold it in place, and your headlining is only normally a cloth or a fibre type substance. If you hit a really nice big pothole, we've got plenty of those in England, there's the possibility the cable could dangle down in front of your view while driving along. To help with that, there's a little tip. What you can do is wrap a cable tie around the cable, like I say, measure it out across your window screen, chop the end off. If it's sharp on the end, just wrap a bit of electrical tape around them. It's just to pad it out so it doesn't rub the inside of your headlining and theoretically could make a mess of it. Once you've done that, you can gently normally tuck this up above the headlining just using your fingers only. The headlining's quite fragile, so do not go at it like a bull in a china shop. Just take your time with it and tuck it up. So what we're aiming for is this piece to dangle down from basically the side of the mirror on the passenger side. I'll show you what I mean. Before we actually start moving it, I'm just going to quickly show you some handy tools to have for proceeding. The most critical one being this. This is a trim leverage tool. It's made of plastic. As you can see, it's quite strong. And what this does is to help you move bits of trim gently out of the way without putting dents in it. A lot of cars have plastic trim nowadays everywhere, and it's very soft. If you shove a screwdriver behind it, you're going to make a right mess of it. These, again, available car shops, eBay, Amazon. They're literally like £1 to £2 a pack. Very much worth investing in rather than damaging your vehicle. Do not try and prise anything with a screwdriver. It will make a mess. Obviously, you're going to need a multimeter. If you haven't got a multimeter, you can use one of those little test probe lights. One of them things where it looks like a screwdriver and you tap it on the end of a circuit and it lights up to let you know it's live. Okay. Some long nose pliers, because the fuses are right up under the dashboard and awkward to get out. You get a little plastic tool with the car to remove the fuses, but it's easier to just shove that in, grab the fuse and pull. Not necessarily, just handy. Okay, I do a lot of these, so I always use those. You don't have to, you can use a plastic tool if you want that comes with the car. And some snips, cable snips. That's pretty much it. So let's get on with the headlining, and we're going to use this to just prise the top of the headlining down slightly. There we are, guys, we've tucked it up. Now a lot of these Aygos have this plastic cover that sits here. What you do to remove it is pull it down, and it's on some clips. There you go. So just pull that down to remove it, and obviously to put it back on is the reverse. Just shove it back up. Tuck your cable all the way along. Steady my camera there, sorry about that. All the way along the top here, the headlining, until you get to the A pillar, and then we're going to use a plastic leverage tool to just ease this plastic trim forward and tuck the cable behind the airbag. Okay, there's an airbag behind here. Don't worry, you won't set it off. Don't pull at it, a lot. Just ease the cable behind it, gently pull it behind it. And then we're going to pull this rubber seal off that's here and go down the edge with the power cable. Just be aware as when you're doing this, when you're pulling this trim off, this white goo, don't get it on your seats or anything, because it will not come off. It's a right sod. Keep it well away from any fabric. Right, guys, so we're now down here. Yeah, we're running underneath here. What we're going to do now is unscrew this, and then there you go. We're going to pop this panel off, just on little poppers. Pull this away. We need both hands for this, but basically it pops off. There's a popper on it, so we can get to the rear of it. Once you've got the panel popped off, it gives you access to this area. There's your poppers in the rear of it. This nut here is a 10mm. We're going to take that out and use that as our earthing point. So we'll put the earthing cable behind the plastic tab of the dashboard, in other words, so it contacts with the metal. With the bolt fully removed, you can get your hand behind the dashboard, pull it forward like so, and hook your cable down and under, out of the way. There's a little plastic lug to line up to get it back, which can be fiddly. There we go. And then we're now free to use our bolt and the black cable as an earthing point. Right, guys, now we're going to test the power. Your fuse box is located up and under, so there's your accelerator pedal, just here, up and under the dashboard. And with the ignition off, we're going to test the fuses. Now, I've done a lot of these in the past, but what we're going to do is get our test probe and pop it on the fuse terminal that's showing there. Look, that's a 5 amp on this one. And get the focus. There you go, 0 volts. Now when you turn the ignition on, that will change to 12 volts and show you that that's an ignition switched live fuse on this particular car. Do test your car, because they vary from vehicle to vehicle, wherever they're made, etc. But you do need something that's an accessory circuit, so nothing to do with airbags or engine management or ABS, so something that goes on and off with the ignition. Some cigarette lighters go on and off with the ignition, for example. Heater goes on and off with the ignition. That'd be fine. Or you can just use the fuse that I've shown you there, which is the rear one on the far right hand side, and it's a 5 amp. If your car has the same fuse box layout as this one and is the same spec and year, so it does matter. You really do need to test them. Like I say, when you put the ignition on, that would show voltage, and that's the fuse we're going to pull out right now. So there's the fuse that we've pulled out, and as you can see, it's mini blade rather than microblade. So that pops straight in there. Do this with 2 hands, guys, it's not going to go. Oh no, there you go. So pop that in like so. Some of these Aygos have this version of mini blade fuse. If you've got this version of mini blade fuse, you can normally get these adapters to match, or just go and get yourself 5 amp fuse from the car shop, a normal one, because this will plug in just fine even if you've got this type of fuse inserted in your fuse box. It just sits slightly proud. It's no big deal though. You just plug it in where that old fuse came from. And pay attention to which way round that I orientate the fuse holder, because we need the power to travel through the fuse correctly. And there we go. There's your fuse spur inserted into the fuse box, the correct way round. And what we've done is tidied up all the cabling. We can tuck this away into the side here and obviously pop the panel back over it. Before we do that though, you might want to test your camera actually works first. So with your camera all mounted, pop the ignition on. And we should power up just fine. And there we go. Guys, don't forget to pop your little trim back on, back in your footwell there, and screw the little black bit over it that holds it in place. But that's it. You've successfully installed your dash cam on your Aygo. If this was any help at all, please put a thumbs up for me, much appreciated, and goodbye for now.